That is incredible. All right, guys, welcome to my frequently asked questions about the Pacific Crest Trail. Let's get into it. Earlier this year, I finished the Pacific Crest Trail. It took me just under 5 months. I started on the 22nd of April and finished on the 16th of September. It was the most incredible journey ever. I had an incredible time, met loads of friends, saw the most amazing places, met incredible trail angels, and just had an all-round great adventure. Almost at the top of Mule Pass. Okay, a good one. How much route planning and logistics did I do before? And the answer is very little. I obviously knew the trail and knew bits and pieces in the trail, but I didn't know. Hey, Val. I didn't know too much ahead of me. So I pretty much knew what was coming up in the next, 100 to 200 miles. And then I would, as I went further along, learn more about what was coming up. So it was sort of tricky. It was one of those things that was a cross between wanting to be informed and know what was happening, but also not wanting to know too much or have too higher expectations of what was ahead, and then either not meet those expectations or skip other parts to race ahead to other things. I know that probably doesn't help lots, but basically I didn't know loads. I used Far Out while I was over there and pre-planning to work out where I was going to camp and things like that. But in terms of what I actually knew prior to trail, not a lot. And that was, most people, people have a varying degree of knowledge. People have watched all sorts of YouTubes and read all sorts of things. Some people haven't watched stuff before. I fell into that camp, each to their own. But yeah, you don't need to know too much. There's a lot of people around that will be able to help you and that know a lot, that are willing to give you their time, their information, everything. So up to you, depends how much you want to know. Obviously it's important to know certain things, but in terms of route planning and logistics, the trail is very simple. It's pretty straightforward. Next up, what do you eat? Might have overcooked it recently. This is a bit of an easy one. I am a creature of habit. I pretty much ate the same thing every day on trail almost for 5 months. Breakfast, I had a variety of bars or protein snacks. So there's those Lenny and Larry or something cookies. I had Luna bars. I had Nature's Own bars. I had all sorts of different bars that I'd have a variety of in the morning. So what I'd do, I'd wake up, I'd have a black coffee, may or may not mix a carnations in just for a bit of some calories, some protein, just something. Then I'd pack my tent up and I'd rock and roll. I'd have few bars in the morning before waiting to lunch. Then at lunch I'd have the same thing. I'd always have a tortilla and tuna, or eventually I moved on to tuna rolls, cheese rolls, or tuna and cheese rolls, but pretty much always the same thing. And then for dinner I would have ramen as my main with TVP, textured vegetable protein, so soy protein that's dehydrated, so it's super light to carry, but just add some protein and some dried veggies if I had any. Some nuts as well, I'd mix nuts in. And then in terms of snacks, again, more bars, which is boring, but if you find the right ones, it's good. Dried fruit, nuts, chippies, lollies, those are the main things. Just basically stuff I liked so that I want to keep eating, because eating was a main goal for me, was to make sure I ate enough while I was on trail so that I didn't lose too much weight. To be honest, none of that food really gives me the ick now even. I don't really want a plain tuna wrap, but the rest of it I could get amongst pretty easily. So that's food on trail. And then you try to eat really well when you're in towns. Yeah. In towns. Okay, next up is, how do you shower? Okay, so everyone seems to be really worried about showering on trail. I mean, you don't shower on trail. If there's rivers or lakes or whatever, water sources, you can definitely bird bath, swim if it's deep enough to clean yourself off. I definitely did that. I don't like being dirty, so anytime there was a water source that I was able to clean myself in, I would. Otherwise, you shower when you're in town. And depending where you're staying, that's where you do it. At a hotel or a hostel or a campground or a trail angel's house, wherever you are. Some towns had coin operated laundries, or they'd have not laundries, showers, well both laundries and showers, but showers at the visitor center. So it was really a variety of places. Generally when we hit towns we had at least a Nero. So a Nero is a day where you have smaller amount of miles heading into a town, versus a 0 is where you have no miles, so you have stayed in town the night before and the night after, a 0 trail mile day. So we'd either, generally if we went to a town, we'd have a Nero or a 0. So we'd usually be staying somewhere and resultantly we'd shower there. Yeah. Okay, I'm just watching this back and I realized in the showering section, I forgot to mention maybe the most important thing. When I'm on trail, I will, if there's not a water source to shower or wash, I will baby wipe myself every night before bed, because I can't go to bed dirty. Just, it's not for me, but each to their own. Jesus, oh my God.
And then do like...
Next up is also laundry, which is pretty much the same story as that. You should wash it either at a hotel, a laundromat, hostel, campground, whatever, visitor center. The only difference with laundry is, and this was a question for me before heading over to the trail, I was like, what the fuck do you wear when you're doing laundry if you want to wash everything you own? And it's two options. One is your rain gear, because you don't wash your rain gear. So most people have rain pants and a rain jacket. So you do that, you wear that, which is feels kind of gross when you're all sticky and hot, but then you have clean clothes, so it's worth it. Other option is loaner clothes. So depending where you are, whether it, like if it's a hostel or if it's a hiker hotspot, there'll generally be what's called a loaner clothes box. And loaner clothes are just a variety of random clothing items that you can wear while you wash your stuff, and the place that you're doing your laundry at will just wash those. So at Mary's and the Lion's Den at the end, we all were wearing like full Hawaiian kits of loaner clothes while we washed all our stuff, and it was awesome. So that's laundry, and yeah, you just generally do it in the towns as you go. You can obviously rinse stuff out in rivers and bits and pieces as you go along, but for the most part, we were sort of washing like once a week, probably at the worst. Maybe, I can't remember what my longest was, but probably about 7 days, I think. So yeah, that's laundry.
Like, you know, we
Next
see
up.
footprints in the sand and they're fresh.
Next up, what have we got? Trail angels, how do you find them, etc. So trail angels are amazing. They are a group of people all along the trail who go out of their way to do all sorts of things for hikers, whether it's, you know, organizing rides, places to stay, providing trail magic, so like food and drinks on trail. The list goes on, honestly, they're incredible. And the main way to either get in contact with them or find out where they are or what's going on would be through Facebook groups. So if you aren't a Facebook user, I would probably join just for that, because that was the main way we got in contact with a lot of people in all the towns that we stayed in along the way. So there's all different Facebook groups for not for every town, but for at least different areas of trail. Once you sort of search PCT Trail Angel or PCT Angel group and a location, it'll come up. Or if you're a member of any of the bigger PCT groups on Facebook, there'll be links to them in a lot of those. But that's the main way to find people and get in contact, I found. And it's really worth it, because these people are beautiful and they often just want to help and hang out and say g'day and get to know you. And a lot of the time they don't want anything in return. And yeah, it's incredible. But that's definitely the best way to meet people. There are often signs at like road crossings and trailheads near towns which have trail angels numbers on them, so you can call them. So that's a way you could find them as well. But in terms of trying to like organize a hitch before you get to a town, I think Facebook is probably the way to go. My thumb. Next up, hitchhiking. I got asked about hitchhiking a bit. Did I ever feel nervous, scared, etc.? And no, I hitchhiked a few times, only once or twice by myself, but I felt super comfortable. I think hitchhiking, like all things, is trust your gut a bit. If the situation feels a little off, don't get yourself into it. Not that you get yourself into it, but don't get in the car. Yeah, I had no problems. Hitchhiking along the trail towns, obviously there's loads of hikers around, so people are really used to seeing PCT hikers and will often want to pick you up and help you out. And they just want to say, hey, know what your trail name is, where you're from, etc. Yeah, but hitchhiking was fine. It was something I was nervous about going over because there's not a huge hitchhiking community in Australia. But yeah, it was all good. It was fine. I met lots of cool people doing it. Something else you can do when hitchhiking is have a family member or a friend have your location, so they know where you're at. Send them a text when you get into a car and send them a photo of that car and a picture of the license plate, so they've got an idea of where you're at and who you're with. Cost. I will do a separate video on this because I want to sort of break it down a lot more. But quickly going over my cards last week, I think the cost is somewhere between $7,000 and $7,500 USD on the ground cost. So once I was in the country, so spending whilst on trail, about between $7,000 and $7,500, which is better than I thought, to be honest, because while I was over there, it felt really expensive. California particularly felt really expensive, but Oregon and Washington were less expensive because we were doing bigger miles, we were stopping in towns less, so there was just less accommodation and food out expenses. But yeah, $7,000 to $7,500 USD on the ground. So that doesn't include my flights over there, my visa, or my gear costs. And they're obviously substantial. Yeah, but I'll do a separate video and go into that and sort of break it down by area and things like that, because we definitely could have spent less, but I'm happy the way we did it, in terms of getting enough rest and the right kind of food when we're in town, and yeah, that sort of thing.
Oh, I already got my...
Shoes, how many pairs? I used 5 pairs of shoes. So I flew over with one and I bought 4 pairs whilst I was over there. I've been asked a bit about how you get shoes on trail, and there's obviously a variety of ways. A lot of the towns have gear stores that stock a lot of the shoes that people on trail wear. I ordered mine online. I ordered 3 of the pairs online. One I bought at a gear store. That being just because where I was on trail, there wasn't gear stores, so I ordered them online. I wore Ultras the whole time. I think it's called the Experience Wild. I loved it. It's a cushier shoe and it has a 4mm drop, so it's not a 0 drop shoe. I found it really comfortable. And the way that I would ship them, because they didn't use USPS, I had to get them shipped to an address, so I would actually send them to Trail Angels. So I got 3 different pairs sent to amazing different Trail Angels that, yeah, they were just willing to take the packages and then deliver it to us when we were in town, which is incredible and really helpful. So that was awesome. So yeah, 5 pairs of shoes. I wore the same model the whole time. I got anywhere from 500 to 700 miles out of a pair. By the end of that, they were very ready to be swapped over. But yeah, I was happy with them. That was a good shoe for me.
Yeah! What the fuck?
Next question, sort of shoes, blisters. I didn't have any blisters. I'm really lucky. Or I got a few, but like really deep ones. I have really dry, crusty-ish hoofs from running, and I just have dry skin. So that sort of protected me, I think, in that my feet were just so dry and sort of probably already callous that I didn't have any issues with blisters. A lot of people did, and the main things they would do to try and avoid them or help them once they were there is, 1, wear toe socks. A lot of people wore toe socks and think that really helps. It's really preventative, and once you have a blister, it helps and then it's not rubbing. I wore toe socks the whole time as well and really liked them. And another thing is Leukotape. So people use Leukotape as like a barrier between your skin and your sock on your shoe, just, I guess, to decrease friction. So those are the 2 main things you can do. I also every night would wash my feet, either with water if we were by a water source, or using a wet wipe if we didn't have water, and then I'd use moisturizer on my feet. I think that helped, but I think it's just one of those things. Some people get blisters and some people don't, it seems to be. So I think I was just pretty lucky there.
Oh, yeah. I think it's good to go.
Thoughts on the Sierra, and was it scary with any of the high traverses? Okay, first thoughts on the Sierra. My favorite by far. I love the Sierra. It's so beautiful. There's honestly nothing like it. Really dependent on the year and the snow level, I think, as to how scary it would be in different areas, and your skill level and what you're used to and what you've done before. I'd never hiked in snow before, and I found the Sierra to be not scary at all for the year that I was doing it. It felt really comfortable. Obviously there were sections that I took slower than others, if I wasn't sure, but overall I found it a pretty great experience. I know people that went in earlier than us, who were doing more route finding, found different bits and pieces pretty scary. So I think, again, this is really specific on what the conditions are like, and that can honestly change like week to week, day to day. It's different. So with the timing of going in early June when we went in, we were pretty lucky. There was a bit of snow, enough to make it look really beautiful, but it didn't really feel dangerous.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
That being said, one of the questions as well was, did I buy my ice axe and microspikes before? No, I didn't.
It's got an ice axe.
So I bought my microspikes from Nomad Ventures using the Trevor Spikes program near San Jacinto. I got them in Idlewild, and I didn't actually need them when I was there, but I was happy to have them because it's the kind of thing that if I'd come up to a situation where I needed it and didn't have them, I would have been really annoyed at myself. So I bought those there and I carried them with me up to the Sierras. My ice axe I bought at Triple Crown Outfitters at Grumpy's at Kennedy Meadows South. And again, didn't need it, but it was kind of expensive, but it's money that I'm happy I spent, because if I'd needed it and I didn't have it, I would have felt like an idiot and been like, why the fuck did I not spend the money? Now I'm scared or uncomfortable or can't pass through here or whatever it was. So yeah, in terms of high traverses, there's definitely sections that people find a little bit overwhelming, but for the most part, if you're not comfortable, just slow down, wait for other people. There's always going to be lots of people coming through throughout the day at some stage, and just wait and try and cross with people who are more comfortable. That would be my main takeaway. But yeah, the Sierras are unreal. They're so freaking beautiful. The JMT is a trail that I would love to go back and do one year, just because that section is incredible. Honestly, some of the most beautiful trail I've ever seen. What have we got next? Toileting on trail. That was one that people ask about all the time. Yeah, dig a cat hole, do your business, cover it up. I used a bidet, which I loved. I've got a separate video on toileting. It's just really short and just goes over what I use. But yeah, toileting on trail is fine. It's actually funny coming back to real life. One of the things that was almost difficult at first was like not being able to pee wherever I want, whenever I want, having to be like, oh wait, no, I can't just go behind that tree. Toileting on trail was fine. But I've hiked and run in the bush a lot, so I'm very used to that. But yeah, it was good. Did I use any apps for navigation other than Far Out? And the answer is no. Friends did, like people that are into maps had all sorts of different navigation apps. I'm not really that way inclined, so I just used Far Out. I loved Far Out. The recency of comments from people ahead of you is like, can't beat that kind of information. Having the water sources and campsites and everything marked is awesome. My only issue with Far Out is generally you can fit way more people at all the campsites than it says. It'll say like 1 or 2 sites and then like 10 of you fit there comfortably. But again, the comments will generally tell you that. So yeah, no, I didn't use any other map apps except Far Out, but I love Far Out.
And now for the last one.
Did you pre-plan most of your days? So did we pre-plan where we were going to camp each day? Yes and no. A lot of the time we would have an idea, and we'd like decide it either the night before or that morning. It wasn't like we knew like ages in advance, but depending how we're all feeling, we would potentially do more. Usually we wouldn't do less. We'd normally, if anything, do more miles than we planned. The main reason we ever sort of pre-planned that was because generally there was around 6 of us in our group hiking together throughout almost the entire trail. So we needed to have an idea of spots where all of us could fit. And to be honest, we never had a problem, and that's a lot of people. So yeah, yes and no. We sort of pre-planned, but we would change it up as well. So I think people that were hiking into like 1s or 2s pre-planned a lot less. They just sort of hike until they were done. We also would stop earlier than most people, just because we'd get to camp around between 5 and 6 and hang out and have dinner and just chill. That was like a really fun, sacred time of the day for us where we'd all just sort of unwind, and that was really nice. So yeah, not a lot of pre-planning there again, but you have the ability to with Far Out. You could plan out everything if you wanted to. Did we have to dry camp a lot? Yes and no. We only dry camped if we had to, put it that way. So if there was the ability to walk a couple more miles and we'd have water, we would always do that. That being said, dry camp, I don't think we dry camped much. First thing I got asked about a lot is, as an international, as an Australian specific, so I can't speak for other countries, is about getting a visa and getting my permit. So let's go with the permit first, because that's relevant to everyone. So getting a permit for the PCT, you do via the PCTA website. There are 2 lottery release dates, one at the end of October, one in January sometime. And what they do between those two dates, they release 50 permits per day. I think it's 35 are released on the October date and 15 are released on the January date. In between that, you're able to change the date that you have, cancel it, etc. So you can amend it, and you can pick up permits if they show up, but they don't always. So let's get into it. So my original date that I wanted was the 22nd of April, so the date that I ended up hiking. In the first lottery, I got sent my email the day before the lottery release day, and it had my time. So you get given a time slot from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. They'll allot you like a minute or 30-second time slot that you need to log on, grab your permit if there are any available, and then log off. I got sent my time, and I think it was about 2:15 p.m. Not great, given they start at 10 and end at 3, but I thought, whatever, I'll jump on and see what I can get. So I logged on. I was lucky enough there was still some dates available in May, so I got myself a permit. I just thought it was better to have a permit than not have one. So I think it was like May 16th, and what I did with that permit was I set the start location as higher up in California. So I can't remember the specific location. It might have been like Agua Dulce or something, but it was higher up, such that I would use local permits to get to that point, and then when the date hit that my PCTA permit kicked in, I would be there, and then I'd be covered for the rest of the trail. So that was my original sort of plan, and I had that. That was in the October lottery release. Then January came, I got a new time. You get another time and you can sort of have another crack. Again, I got a really late time, didn't even bother jumping on. And then later, a couple months later, I think Feb, I was just checking the website, because you can go in and check the website all the time and see if there's any availabilities, anything pops up. And there was loads of April dates. So I was able to change the date from May to the 22nd of April, change my start location back to Campo, back to the beginning. And yeah, ended up with the date I wanted, 22nd of April, starting at Campo, all the way to Canada. So yeah, there's some ways around it that you can go. So everyone sort of assumes you have to have the PCTA permit. And obviously I like the permit system. It's there for a reason. It's to minimize too many people being on trail, and it's just to protect the environment overall. But there are ways around it in that you can use local permits in different areas. So some of the trail you don't actually need to have a permit of any sort, depending where you are, and then different wilderness areas you do need permits. So there are a few permits that you can get early on in California that cover you for different wilderness areas along the way if you have a starting date that's later. So that's sort of a whole nother conversation, but that's a possibility. Next thing, visa. So as an Australian getting a visa, I had to wait a while. So I started 22nd of April. My visa appointment was back in December, and I actually applied for that visa appointment in September. So let's go back to the start there. In September, I jumped on the US visa portal website and thought, I'll just suss out what's available in terms of visas so I know what to do. This is before I'd even gotten a permit. I jumped on. Next available appointment was in December in Melbourne. So I lived closer to Sydney. There are 3 embassies in Australia, the Sydney, Melbourne and Perth. And my closest was Sydney, and the next available appointment in Sydney wasn't until April. So like when I was planning to fly over there. So that obviously wasn't going to work. Perth's was sometime after December, before April, but then Melbourne's was in December. So I just booked the first available one in Melbourne, which I think was like the 2nd of December. This was in early September. So it was about like, I'm going to say a 3 to 4 month wait. So I did that, locked it in, booked some flights, and was like, whatever, I'd rather fly down there, sort it out, get a permit, and have more time than risk trying to do it in April, a week or so before I'm flying out, and yeah, anything happen. I obviously can't speak for other countries. I haven't done it over there. I had a girlfriend that did it in France, same sort of situation. It took her a long time. One of my girlfriends here in Australia, she ended up doing hers in Japan. There was a wait nowhere near as long as Australia though, so it just really depends on the country. But that was mainly the visa permitting process. Overall, it was less stressful than I thought. I know going into it, it's really overwhelming because you sort of feel like there's a million and one things that you want to sort out and you don't really know how until you start doing it. Okay, what have we got next? How much of the trail did you hike? Did you skip any? Yes. So, okay, I hiked about 90% of the trail and I skipped 3 different sections. The first section I skipped was Quincy to Chester, and this was 90 miles of trail. And I actually missed the midpoint, which was a bummer. But the reason being was I was having pretty bad shin splints, so bad pain. I took 5 days off trail and it was worrying me a lot that I was potentially going to have to get off trail. And between Quincy and Chester, there's a few really big steep hills, like 5,000 foot climbs up and down into Belden that I wanted to avoid because that was the kind of terrain that was really aggravating my shin. So that was a really hard decision. But you know, I was like, fuck, at the end of the day, if I skip this and I get the rest and then I can keep going and I can finish the rest of the trail, that's more important to me than hobbling through this section and potentially being injured. The next 2 sections were fire closures. So the next section I skipped was Mount Shasta to Said Valley. So that was about 150 miles. Now, we did not have to skip this whole section. There was only a 30-mile closure near Etna. But the reason we did was that the day the fire sort of was on trail and they started doing closures, we were leaving Mount Shasta that day. So we didn't actually really know where the fire was at, where would be closed. We didn't have lots of information. So we sort of made a quick decision at the time. We got on a bus from Mount Shasta to Etna. And then we did the same thing from Etna to Said Valley. We jumped ahead again because the closure was right up until Etna and we didn't know the conditions. We were worried about smoke, whether the fire would turn. In hindsight, we could have definitely hiked more of this section, but at the time with the information we had, that was the decision we made, and that I'm cool with that. That doesn't bother me. I don't want to fuck around with fire stuff. And yeah, like I said, we did what we thought was right at the time. Next skip was in Washington, and that was from White Pass to Chinook Pass. And that was 30 miles and there was a full-on fire there. That was hectic. When we skipped it, it wasn't actually closed, but the smoke on trail was really bad. That next day they closed it. So really happy with that decision again. Don't want to fuck with fire or smoke. Even after skipping that, we had a few days where we had to hike with our masks on. So yeah, no regrets. Initially when I was doing the trail and I had to do those skips, I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to go back at the end and get these sections of trail. It seemed like it was important to me at the time, but once I finished, I wasn't really worried about it. It's funny, I had a really satisfying experience overall, even skipping those sections, and I didn't really feel the need to go back. So also there was fires in some of them still when I finished anyway, so it's lucky I felt that way because the 2 fire sections were on fire still, so I couldn't have gone back and gotten them even if I wanted to. But yeah, I felt really happy with my experience overall. So who knows, one day if I'm back in the States in the area, maybe I'll dabble in doing them. But for now, really stoked. I did 90% of the trail. So I think overall I skipped about 270 miles. So yeah, almost 10%. Oh yeah, over 10%. So, you know, it is what it is. That's what made sense at the time. I'm cool with it. Okay, what else? Those are the main bits and pieces, I think. Yeah, those are the main questions I got asked. So if there's anything else you want to know, please drop it below. I will do another one of these if I get enough questions, any questions. I've done a series of like little mini videos on bits and pieces about the trail, and I will continue to do so. Thank you so much for watching along. It means the world. And thank you for following my journey. If you did, I am actually in the middle of making a longer movie length, not quite movie, but a longer version of my time on trail rather than the short little like 1 week clips I did. Yeah, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, do all of that, whatever it is. Really appreciate your time.